Well, glowing tributes continue to stream in honor of the fallen immediate former Education Cabinet Secretary, that is Professor George Magoha, a developing story that will be here to give you updates on the same. This is at a time when it's more of a shock, a double tragedy for the family upon as well the demise of his brother. That is on December the 6th, 2022. Alex Nyaberia, who now has landed into the country, and they say they will start by burying him first, and then they proceed to prepare this decent send-off for Magoha, that is George Amore Albert, and we'll be looking forward to give you updates on all this up until to the very last bit. Welcome on board on this very beautiful morning. Time flies. It's already a Thursday, the 26th day of January 2023. Join me this morning as we take a look at what is happening in the world of news as we continue to pay tribute to George Magoha, but most importantly, as we also get to other very, very important conversations away from what is in the world of news. But then again, interestingly, conversations that really revolve around what is happening around us and are very, very important as well and instrumental towards, the betterment of our survival. So, karibu sana. Please make sure that you keep me company from this very point up to the last beat. The hashtag is Morning Cafe at Linda_Lela TV47KE. You can interact with us. I sample some of the comments that you send us as we continue with the broadcast. My name is Linda Alela, and this is Morning Cafe once again. The Daily Nation, the Standard newspaper, and the People Daily are the papers that we'll be looking at this morning, and so it's generally about news. Also, as we take a look at some of the stories that we have prepared ourselves, and to complement some of the stories that we have, let's pick this story that we have worked on. As I started by saying, we've seen glowing tributes continue streaming in honor of the fallen immediate former Education Cabinet Secretary, that is Professor George Magoha, who passed on Tuesday, and leaders from all walks of life trooped to his current home to condole with the family, as Paul Kirobi tells us.
At the home of Professor George Magoha in Lavington, Nairobi County, family and friends of the fallen professor converged to pay tribute to the man who is said to have dedicated a sizable chunk of his life to public service. Among them is the ODM leader Raila Odinga, who eulogized Magoha as an academic giant who will be fondly remembered for his attempts to bring reforms in the education sector.
I mean, he did many things, but the most important one is this one of bringing discipline in management of our examinations. In the past, there were always very many cases of exam cheating. He brought that to a complete end. And he was hands-on all the times. He's been facing the head teachers head-on and trying to introduce discipline. I think he brought discipline in our education system. That to me is a major legacy that is left in that sector.
Odinga says the last time he spoke with Magoha was a fortnight ago.
And he told us that they interviewed him. There's even a picture which is shown us, which they took immediately after interviewing him, and offered him a teaching job at Maseno. And he said that he was going to do his best in Maseno.
Others who trooped to condole was the former cabinet secretary without portfolio, Rafael Tuju.
Monday afternoon, when we were discussing with him about the funeral arrangements for Professor Nabera, who is his brother. And to that extent, we agreed on virtually everything as far as the program is concerned on Saturday. And I didn't know that the next time I come to this house, I'll be coming following his passing on.
The family says it will proceed with the burial of Professor Magoha's younger brother Saturday, even as his burial preparations begin with a meeting Thursday. At the Lee Funeral Home, largely uneventful scenes, as few friends and family trooped to pay their final respects. They also paid glowing tributes.
So we knew Professor as a strong family member. Anybody else seeing him out there would think he would not be down to support the family. But I'm telling you, I've seen it since we became related with them as the Magoha family. We are very saddened as the larger family to have lost Professor, who was until yesterday was the one handling the burial arrangements of his other late brother, Professor Richard.
Magoha breathed his last on Tuesday, January 24, at the Nairobi hospital after suffering from cardiac arrest. Professor George Magoha will go down as a mentor who left behind a great legacy, not just in the education sector. He also defended the current system of education, CBC, to ensure all is well in the education sector. Paul Kirobi, TV47, Lavington, Nairobi.
And as I said, this to complement some of the stories that have been detailed in the paper, and we'll also be picking more of the same. As I have said, it's a developing story that we look at. A shock tragedy of the Magohas. They are speaking of a family in anguish as they ticked all the boxes of members of successful family, dedicating their lives to serve in 3 corners of the world. But the last few days and years have dampened the brothers' story, transforming it into a heartbreak and, of course, a tale of rare brains plucked at peak of their careers. A story captured on page 5, 6, and 8 of the Standard newspaper. And so we're looking at, the demise of these 3 brothers. That is in August 2021, when, of course, the flight captain Charles Agunga Magoha passed on in Sweden. He was buried on September 11, 2021. On the other side, December the 6th date, in which, that is in 2022, when Alex Nyabera Magoha died in Texas, United States, and he will be buried this Saturday. And then January the 24th, 2023, when Professor George Omore Magoha Albert died in Nairobi, and his date of burial is yet to be announced. This is quite unfortunate, indeed a tragedy, and of course something that has been a blow not just to the people of Kenya, but the family, or not just the family, but generally also those ones that are the villages there on the other side. Of course, Magoha village in shock, as I have said, also their very own home area. This has been quite a shocker to a majority of them, who describe Magoha as one who was down to earth, friendly, always ready to interact with the people, at the lowest level, and as generous as many would perhaps not have expected. And so, just to continue with this very same story, we also look at more of the packages that my team has prepared, and residents of Yala area, that is in Siaya County, have eulogized Magoha as an illustrious son who was their pride and joy. The residents who remembered him as a kind person who's cherished everyone who he came in contact with, saying the loss of Magoha and his brother is a big blow, not just to Kenya, but to the world.
Even as the entire country mourns the death of former Education CS George Magoha, the pain of the loss has hit hard at Umira village in Gem constituency, Siaya County, where Professor Magoha hails. As early as 10 a.m., the Magoha family home was largely deserted as many family members traveled to Nairobi following the news of his passing.
Tulikuwa na yeye juzi home, nikampikia ugali. Tukaongea kani advice kufikia jana jioni kitu 6:40 tukapigiwa simu ati Magoha Professor ameaga duniani.
The few who remained are still reeling from shock, not only from Professor Magoha's passing, but also from the fact that the family was at the heart of preparing for the burial of the former Education CS's younger brother.
Ni pigo kubwa katika familia. Ni pigo kubwa katika familia. Mambo mengi wanatarajia, na alikuwa amefunika mambo mengi jokogolaga.
Pigo limetupa huzuni kwa sababu limekuja ni kilio ambacho kimekuja ghafli. Hatukutarajia kwa sababu tulikuwa bado na msiba wa kaka yetu mwingine ambaye tunataka tumzike Jumamosi.
On the other side of the home, workmen were busy rushing against time as they prepare Professor Nyaberi's grave, who died at the United States in December last year and whose burial was slated for this Saturday, an event which we are told Professor Magoha took it upon himself. Those close to the family calling for prayers for the larger Magoha family, which has now lost 3 people in under 2 years. Residents here praised the fallen professor as a kind, easygoing, jolly good fellow, a sharp contrast to how the other part of the country knew him as a no-nonsense leader.
People feared him because he was not a no-nonsense person. If you come to him with gossip that this happened and this happened, he could not accept that. It was always to the point, what do you want? You finish with him, that is all. So in our neighborhood, in our village, there's no anything that I can stand and say that we can accuse him of. He was a very good man.
Residents now yet to come to terms with the loss of the man they perceived as Siaya's gift to the world. Zainab Mohammed, T47.
Well, this as education stakeholders in the country continue to pay their tributes to the late former Education Cabinet Secretary, Professor George Magoha, some terming him as a great performist and reformist. Well, Collins Lusweti looks at the key reforms that the late Cabinet Secretary initiated in the education sector.
He has been described by many as a man who had his heart in education, and this was clear during his tenure as Cabinet Secretary for Education. Under his stewardship, the country witnessed the introduction of competence-based curriculum in the year 2017, with the late CS arguing that the curriculum focuses on talents and skills of learners rather than exam-oriented, associated with 844.
That is an intellectual talking, because you know as well as I do that there is nothing perfect. Somebody tells you that something is perfect, that person is a fool. If you have a friend who agrees with you all the time, that person is a fool.
He also made a strong case for technical and vocational educational training institutes, saying they were better places for students who failed to earn the minimum university entry, terming the institutions as a game changer as far as tackling unemployment in the country is concerned. The National Education Management Information System NEMIS witnessed massive improvements under his reign, with the aim of ending mischief by school heads and management. Through the improved system, cases of ghost students and non-existent schools have declined massively.
Just give you an abstract figure where, for example, year X, you may find that the number of children where the money was spent was maybe 8.5 million. But the actual number of children who are there are less.
He was actively involved in the launch of junior secondary schools, especially with the construction of classrooms, together with ensuring proper handling of students who had fee arrears, protecting them from school heads, who he personally described as inhumane.
At Kipindi Lala Salama, I don't want eggs on my face as I go out. So we shall deal with you circumphoniously if we find out that you are enjoying the poverty situation in our homes.
Stakeholders in the education sector have acknowledged his contributions, terming him a great reformist in the sector.
Kuthibitisha ile uongozi ambao inatakikana na ile contributions yake tunayajua. Aliyajaribu sana kutoa uongozi inayofaa.
Journalists on matters education have also explained how it was like to work with the late professor.
Kwa hivyo akasema press conference itakuwa mwendo wa saa 1 asubuhi. Lakini kwa bahati mbaya tukachelewa kwa dakika 13 iwapo sijakosea. Kwa hivyo tulifika pale kwenye lango at 7:13. Tulipatana naye akitoka. Kwa hivyo kwa kuweka muda alikuwa hakosei hata.
Stakeholders in the education sector have remembered Professor Magoha as a revolutionist due to the many changes he brought in the sector. May his memories forever be a blessing. Collins Lusweti, TV47, Nairobi.
And as the country continues to mourn former Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha, a section of medics now maintain that his demise has brought to light the deplorable state of emergency services in the country. And as Elizabeth Atieno now reports, clinicians from the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers have called on the government to introduce the first aid and, of course, knowledge in the education curriculum to save lives.
Tuesday evening, just hours after the country learnt of the demise of former Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha, his close friend Professor Walter Mwanda gave a recount of what ensued in his last moments on earth. Mwanda says he received a phone call from the late Magoha's wife, Dr. Barbara, at around 3 p.m. when he was still in his clinic at the Kenyatta National Hospital. And while on his way, Dr. Barbara called him again to confirm if he had a blood pressure machine. Dr. Mwanda was forced to drive back to the facility since he lacked the equipment in his car.
As I was about 4 kilometers to the home, she SMS and asked me whether I could get an ambulance. I was too close to home, their home. There was a traffic jam. They drove right to the home. At the gate, I met some attendants who rushed me in. I met the son at the door who rushed me straight to where he was.
A section of medics in the country now argue that Professor Mwanda's narration amplifies the need for serious intervention in to emergency services.
And I must say that as a society, we are really doing badly in terms of emergency response and care, and especially putting in strategies, implementation of strategies that are actually supposed to aid and enable for these services to be provided.
According to medical reports, the late professor collapsed 4 times, the first time while at home. He then collapsed twice while on his way to hospital before having the final collapse while in the facility where he breathed his last. But just what should be the first course of action in such a case? Dr. George Gibore now explains.
The immediate thing to do once people feel these symptoms is actually to alert or seek medical attention immediately. And to be able to diagnose this, the medics normally do what we call the electrocardiogram and the echocardiogram, and including the chest X-ray, so that they are able to ascertain that this is a heart attack. And if it is confirmed, they are able to initiate a number of medication.
During the World Health Assembly, the World Health Organization reiterated the need for countries to develop protocols for emergency healthcare services as one of the pillars for attaining universal healthcare. In response, the Ministry of Health launched the Kenya Emergency Care Policy 2020 to 2030 to safeguard the lives of Kenyans. But this policy is yet to be implemented, if Dr. Peterson Washira's word is anything to go by.
How should a society look like in terms of emergency preparedness? And I think if you listened to the recount of one of his friends, a professor doctor, who was recounting the story and whatever happened before his death, you will tell that much needs to be done.
Medics now want the government to consider incorporating basic first aid knowledge in the education curriculum to help Kenyans know how to handle health emergencies.
If you were to have a cardiac arrest or any sort of emergency where we are right now, the people who are surrounding you, have they been given that capacity in terms of knowledge and skills to be able to help you so that you cannot die? And I'm talking about common mwananchi. I'm not talking about taking people to hospital, because in the case of emergency, the response needs to be immediate.
It's unfortunate that this is something that is getting many Kenyans, and unfortunately when it comes to this renowned Kenyan, it is a lesson to us that many Kenyans go through the same situation. And it calls upon the leadership to ensure that we are able to prepare our emergency response, train people, because this is something that people need to feel themselves.
According to the medics, it is mandatory for ambulances to be on standby and should be fully equipped with first aid kits and human resource trained in emergency care and response. The late Magoha had a medical background as a surgeon in Nairobi Hospital and was also a professor of surgery at the College of Health Sciences at the University of Nairobi. He also served as the chairperson of the Kenya Association of Urologists from 1997 to 2013. Elizabeth Atieno, TV47.
All right, away from the Magoha matter to a different story altogether. Members of Parliament have their way as the NGCDF is released by Treasury. And we also, what has played out for the better part of the week on this process of induction for committees of Parliament. More than about 300 members of the National Assembly had boycotted an induction seminar that is for about 3 days, and now the members of Parliament have triumphed in an impasse over constituency cash, and that the seminar then officially started yesterday after the money that was wired to the constituency's accounts, or this money was wired to the constituency accounts. And so this as well a developing story, and now that we have our reporters down on ground to update us on what is happening, let's pick this very same story that we've worked on this very same matter. Indeed, the members of Parliament who began the process to impeach Treasury Cabinet Secretary Professor Njuguna Ndung'u over the CDF impasse say they have already collected about 300 signatures for the push, and noting that Professor Njuguna is playing with the lives of Kenyans' children who should be receiving the National Government Constituency Development Fund NGCDF, as Paul Muniu details.
This is how rowdy the induction retreat from MPs in Mombasa was on the first and the second day. Uproar over delays in disbursement of CDF to constituencies 4 months before the end of the current financial year. The members had boycotted engaging in any activity at the workshop until every constituency receives its own share of the County Development Fund, citing that they have been unable to issue bursaries at the community level to needy students. However, the arrival of the Speaker of the National Assembly of Kenya, Moses Wetangula, seemed to carry with it a solution, as moments later the MPs stepped out blissfully.
Tumeshukuru Speaker kwa sababu ametuletea taarifa kamili ambaye imebadilisha yale ambayo tulikuwa tunaambiwa. So leo kila moja ametoka hapa kama amefurahi, na ninajua ya kwamba saa zile tuko hapa tutakuwa focused kwa ile kazi ambayo tumekuja sasa kuanzia saa hii.
The members have lauded the intervention, citing that the move was taken in the advantage of struggling families and to ensure education among the continuing students is achieved.
Sio kwamba wajumbe walikuwa wanateta sababu wanajipenda wenyewe. Wajumbe waliteta sababu wanatetea wale mwananchi wa kawaida ambaye saa hizi watoto wake wako nyumbani na hawezi pata basari.
Kwa hiyo tunataka kusema hata hizo siku mbili kama wabunge wasionekane na Wakenya kama hawakufanya kazi. Ni kazi tumefanya, ile kazi inaitwa representation, na hiyo representation tumefanya hiyo siku mbili ili hiyo bilioni 4 ikaweza kupatikana.
Keharo Member of Parliament Dende Nyoro also cleared the air on the CDF issue, adding that the money was rather insufficient and not blocked as assumed.
So it's not a matter that we don't have money to give bursaries, only that this money is insufficient. And you know, you cannot announce that you are giving bursaries this week and another disbursement next week. So we requested the Treasury to amalgamate this money so that we are able to disburse as a block to the majority of parents that we support majorly every year.
The induction retreat is expected to come to an end on Saturday after being pushed 1 day further to recover the lost time. Paul Muniu, TV 47, Mombasa.
Thanks, Paul, for that. Now, let's finish up with what the papers or the dailies have this morning. Another story that has been captured in the papers: electricity prices may go up in new proposal that is Kenya Power seeks to review of tariffs. That's a story that is on the front page of the Daily Nation, as well on the front page of the Standard newspaper, expounded further on the back page of the Daily Nation. And of course, something that really will not augur well with the majority of the people. That is, of course, Kenya Power seeks rise in tariffs by up to around 117%, and the electricity prices for poor households could rise, and this then would not be really a good thing, and especially in the question of businesses and looking at the cost of living, and this also informed by the cost of structure and the low income earners. And so we'll be following up on this developing story just to see to it that you have all the updates and as well the reactions across the country as pertaining to the same. Another story is that State 6 World Bank helped to build labs for junior secondary, and this also is a story that is on the back page. As you have seen, Education Cabinet Secretary Ezekiel Machogu says that the government has asked the World Bank to fund construction of about 7,000 laboratories countrywide, even as grade 7 learners report next week. And remember, this is one of the things that was being looked at as a threshold to, make sure that at least, a primary school can accommodate, students who cleared their class 6 examinations, and some of them, or most of them actually, were locked out on basis of the fact that they did not have this very important facility in their institutions. And therefore this move, just to create a space, and above everything to also make sure that all these other primary schools are good enough to handle these students. And yes, that is another important story, or big story. Tunnel of death, mortuary in crisis as bodies pile up. Meru Tikching and Referral Hospital mortuary, whose capacity is about 60 bodies, is currently holding about 319 bodies, posing a health hazard. That is a story captured on page 8, and we hope that the stakeholders then would look into that matter for the necessary adjustments. And this is not playing out just in Meru. A couple of other mortuaries in the country, and questions linger as to what really needs to be done in this very matter to evade or to run away from the hazards that would come along with that. That is the Daily Nation. Let's see what the Standard newspaper has. And cost of chaotic members of parliament retreat in Mombasa. That also is the very story that we have touched on. Away from it is on the question of George Magoha and KRS plan to crush tax cheats. That as well is a conversation that is on a story captured on page 22. Remember, the president has been very categorical that his government will not entertain, this fact that we do not have people, or we have people who tend to evade tax, and therefore that every single Kenyan is going to pay their tax as should be. And this story also, Kenya Power strikes new bid to increase electricity cost, and your power bill is set to substantially go up. That is beginning April 1st, should a tariff review application made by Kenya Power go through as proposed, or if it goes through as proposed. That's a story captured on page 4 of the Standard newspaper, and a developing story that will be according you updates on the same. Briefly on what the People Daily has, Magoha's last hour as well, disheartening tale as to what really played out, and most of the people coming out to allude to this or to speak to this, and as well as sending their condolences. That one we have picked. Big win for legislators as Treasury releases about 4 billion for CDF Kitty, as well. That one we have carried. And Oscar's nominees list is out, but who will be the victors? Question of wait and see. One very eventful moment across the global fraternity that is always watched. And Yes, those are the stories on the papers this morning, more or less the same across all these newspapers, and more details also in depth. And you can always grab your copy to get more of this. Now, allow us again to continue or proceed with the stories right here. And locals in the Kerio Valley, Elgeyo Marakwet County, have faulted the national government for talking tough in dealing with the incessant banditry attacks with no actions. This even as Elgeyo Marakwet Governor Wesley Rotich has called on President William Ruto to declare banditry national disaster. Listen in.
As we traverse the dusty roads of Chesongoch area in Elgeyo Marakwet County, we can feel the tension in the air. Residents here are still living in fear after a series of banditry attacks that have sprung in the Kerio Valley, as security officers continue the manhunt for the bandits who shot dead 5 people on Monday and made away with hundreds of livestock. The government staff talking on how to deal with the attacks has however been met with criticism among the locals. According to them, the government should bring in the army to flush out the bandits.
Serikali ya Ruto wametuma askari nje kama huko Kongo, karibu askari 900, na sisi tunahangaika hapa. Tunataka chesi. Hii mambo ya kichaka ya River Kerio, polisi hawezi.
While speaking in Chesongoch, the Elgeyo Marakwet County boss Wesley Rotich has asked President William Ruto to declare banditry a national disaster.
Mimi nataka niambie rais na niambie waziri Kindiki, leta ile nguvu yote ya serikali. Hao watu wajue serikali iko na nguvu. Wakijua serikali iko na nguvu, watalia siku 2, wawache hiyo kazi na sisi wote tuishi. Sisi tuko na uwezo ya kuishi na majirani wetu vizuri. Lakini kama mtu anatumia bunduki, anakuja kwako na analeta ng'ombe yake kwa lazima kilomita 10, ukiona mtoto mdogo unaua, ukiona mzee unaua, na uko kwetu. Na ile ng'ombe unachunga ni ile ulibeba yote siku ile uliiba kutoka miaka ya 90.
During this year's passing out parade of police officers, President William Ruto directed the security personnel to deal firmly with bandits, further noting that his government will seize all banditry-related cases. But for the residents here, this will remain to be a wait and see.
And in one of the biggest political events in the country, Azimio Coalition Party leader Raila Odinga has once again slammed President William Ruto for hijacking the process of nomination or nominating independent electoral and boundaries commissioners. And Odinga, who spoke at a forum of Nairobi leaders ahead of his Sunday's Jacaranda Grounds rally, accused the president of making the selection process a one-man affair. And as Apollo Kamau reports, the opposition leader allies now want the president, that is President Ruto, to call for a joint leaders sitting to break the stalemate on IEBC.
Wakenya msilale.
Azimio Coalition Party leader Raila Odinga sustained his offensive against President William Ruto on the selection panel expected to pick the new polls team, which will oversee the delimitation of constituency boundaries in the 2027 general election.
Raila, Ruto.
Odinga spoke during a meeting with Nairobi grassroots leaders, accusing President Ruto of making the selection process a one-man affair to tilt the scale in his favor in the 2027 poll.
Umebadilisha sheria. Ruto mwenyewe nataka sasa kuteua another electoral commission yake yeye mwenyewe. Unafikiri hii Kenya ni ya Ruto? Yule anasema ati yeye ako na suluhisho ya Raila. Mwambie kama uko na suluhisho leta.
The opposition outfit has also fronted a new proposal telling President Ruto to convene a joint sitting of the majority and minority on how to achieve consensus on the new polls team. There are fears that the selection panel will be populated with Ruto's allies, which will nominate a biased IEBC against Azimio's expectations.
Yeye sasa kwa mamlaka na anakimbiza kuweka masahihi haraka haraka, nashindwa kuelewa ni haraka ni ya nini. So sisi tunamwomba kwa heshima na pia kwa kwa dhati ya kwamba ni muhimu kuinvolve viongozi wote. IEBC si ya serikali, IEBC ni independent commission ambayo inatakana kuwa very independent, ambaye kila mwananchi akisikia ama akiona anajua kwamba hii ni independent commission.
During his Kamukunji grounds rally on Monday, Odinga, in his 8-point ultimatum, called for an audit of the electoral body's 2022 election infrastructure by an impartial body before the new polls team can be picked, a move informed by the opposition calls that Ruto's victory was not legitimate.
Kitu hiyo ya kuuliza tukuwe na audit katika IEBC na uchaguzi uliopita ni kitu muhimu kabisa, kwa sababu itatueleza ukweli vile tunaweza pata reform katika IEBC zinaweza kusaidia hii nchi kusonga mbele. Kwa hivyo tunangojea hiyo audit ifanyike na ifanyike haraka, na tuache kuwa na haraka ya kutafuta makomishona.
The nomination of new IEBC commissioners after every election cycle has always been a point of departure between the opposition and the government, contested since the onset of multi-party democracy in 1992. Apol Kamau, TV47.
All right, and the Right Honorable Raila Odinga has continued to poke holes in the IEBC, on the IEBC, that is in the August general election. And what he says, the teams told Azimio win and won't relent until justice is served. Speaking while meeting grassroots leaders, Raila and the Azimio Brigade say that they will continue with a meeting warning the international community to keep off Kenya affairs.
In a meeting with grassroots leaders from Nairobi County, Azimio leader Raila Odinga has continued to mount war against the Electoral and Boundaries Commission and the just retired officials led by Wafula Chebukati for what he says they stole Azimio win. Further, Raila Odinga has told off the international community for interfering with Kenyan affairs, saying we'll give direction to Azimio Brigade and the followers in the Sunday Jacaranda meeting.
So this is why Kenyans must be prepared to stand up. Stand up for their rights. Stand up and defend your rights. Because if we don't do that, these people will continue to rule you without your consent permanently. And we want to tell the foreign powers, wale serikali zingine ambao wanataka kuingia mambo ya Kenya, wacheni wa Kenya. Wakenya watasuluhisha shida yao wenyewe.
Raila and the Azimio Brigade insist the results made public by Jubilee Secretary General Jeremiah Kioni on January 18th, stating that Raila won the August 9th general election with 8.1 million votes against President William Ruto's 5.9 million votes, and nothing will stop their quest for justice.
Hiyo ni ukweli. This is what tumesema, we have refused to accept. We must refuse to accept. Maana sio kwa sababu ya Raila. Raila atatoka kesho. Raila atakuwa 2027. Anaweza kuwa hayuko. Lakini kama mkienda tena kwa uchaguzi na sasa itakuwa wao ambao waliiba ndio wanakaa pale, wameweka tena wale waizi wenzao upande ile nyingine. Tumeona sasa
kama ilianza wakati baba alikubali kuwa na handshake na Uhuru. Na ile kitu wanaogopa zaidi ni manufaa ambayo inaweza tokana na hiyo handshake kwa Kenya. Kwa sababu tukishikilia yale ambayo walikubaliana, waizi wa Kenya hii ambao wako State House hawana lao. Sio leo, sio kesho, sio kesho kutwa. Mambo yao itakuwa imekwisha. Kwa hivyo hii safari tumeanza leo na tulianza kule Kamkuji. Mimi nawaomba usiangalie nyuma kuangalia wale wanarudi nyuma na wanatoroka. Wale wachache ambao wako hapa tunatosha kuikoboa Kenya, kwa sababu hii ni Kenya tunakoboa.
The Azimio rally in Kamkunji, Raila said that he doesn't recognize William Ruto's government, and Sunday's rally will build up on evidence they have so far released concerning the fraud that happened in the August polls.
Kwa hivyo yale ambayo yuko pale hakuna mtu ambaye anaweza kukanya. Unaona wamekaa kimya. Hiyo ni ukweli mtupu, hiyo matokeo. Tangu itoke mpaka leo Chebukati na wenzake hawajatoka, hawajaongea. Hata yule mbada anaitwa siji Marjan nani? Hussein. Hawajaongea, yeye yuko pale. Maana yake hiyo ni
aenda mpaka mwisho. Na kama kuna yeyote yuko hapa na akona uoga, atoe jamu. Sawa sawa? Atoe jamu na aende kando. Hii akamkunja juzi ni kionjo tu. Tunataka Jacaranda siku ya Jumapili ifurike. Ifurike na watu wenyewe waone. Na hata ile maandamano wamekuwa wakiongea juu yake kila mara. Ile maandamano wamekuwa wakitangaza kila mara inakuja.
Ushindi wetu. Milioni 8 tulipiga kura 8.1. Na hiyo ndio tuna claim. Na tunasema sisi kama wana Jubilee na sisi kama wana Azimio lazima haki yetu irudi.
Elizabeth Mutuku, TV47.
Residents of Escarpment Village in Lari constituency in Kiambu County woke up to a horrific morning where a 74-year-old woman was killed and beheaded as the head is still missing. Chichi Josephine with that.
A somber mood has engulfed Escarpment Village in Kiambu County as a 74-year-old woman was allegedly murdered and beheaded with her head still missing.
Tuende wengine pande hii na wengine tuende pande hivi. Tukonfahamu kama hakuna kichwa. Tukikuwa hiyo sasa tutajua vile tutafanya.
It is suspected that a gang of young men has been on the rampage terrorizing women, mostly widows, singles and grannies, and later assaulting them sexually by raping them, an issue that has brought fear in the area.
Tukapata mama amefanywa kitendo cha unyama, tukapata kichwa hakuna, mama hayuko.
Hawa wamama wakongwe wanasubuliwa na hawa watu na hawaibi chochote, wanakuja kuwasubua peke yake.
Sisi hatujui kama tulikipatiwa pesa ya wakoro, tusijui kama ni hiyo au ni nini. Huwa mtu kama buli kumkata kichwa.
Hata mama yangu pengine nimpeleke kwangu akae, juu sasa akikaa pale atakufa na stress. Hivyo ndio nimeona.
Local administration and police officers are now being urged to conduct patrols within the community as well as allow residents to form security groups to enable them protect their women, especially the elderly.
Na kile tunaomba ni tuongezewe askari wa kutosha wakuwa wanaenda patrol usiku. Juu kama kulikuwa na askari wangekuwa wanaenda patrol usiku, hiyo maneno yote pengine wangesikia hiyo mama akipiga duru hii mama neno haingekuwa imefika mahali imefika.
Na sasa sisi tunataka tuongezewe ofisi, ifuatiliwe kabisa na ifanywe uchunguzi.
Sanya wasee wawe wanasukuka usiku ndio tulinde hawa mama juu wako na shida mingi.
Chichi Josephine, TV47.
All right, and well, we hope that then justice is found. That is quite heinous and not the first case being reported. There is certainly a problem somewhere. And away from it, we shift gears now to the conversation. Two gentlemen already in studio, and one of them perhaps on the way, was supposed to be here, that is Martin Ndati. But before then, Evans Wafula, who's a political analyst and governance expert, as well as civil rights activist Stan Alusiola, are in studio, able enough to walk us through this very important conversation. And it's actually conversations because there are a couple of matters that we'll be looking at. And gentlemen, I know it's a week of mourning for the country, and therefore it's only fair that every of us that gets to hit the set, they get a chance to as well, speak to the demise of Professor George Magoha as they pay their tribute. I know much has been said, much continues to be said, and here we are. It is our moment. Wafula, thank you for creating time, as well as the other name, Alusiola, is much better than Stan whatever. Yes. I thought the English names should be easier, but it appears to be the toughest of them all. So Stan, yes, as well, karibu sana.
Thank you so much. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think just to begin is by also joining other Kenyans condoning with the family of the Professor Magoha. Yeah. I mean, many people remember him, what he did, especially his tenure at the University of Nairobi, where he tried to bring sanity. Everybody says that's when student activism student radicalism, and of course the participation of students and lecturers in pro-democratic reforms. When you got into the university, you remember he called all those people who had been expelled and students who had been suspended and tried to minimize. He introduced conversation and dialogue in the university, and we saw a little bit reduction in student radicalism and, of course, riots. And, of course, the CBC. I think, like last time I was telling you that when you're given a mandate or you're given opportunity to run an institution, people should remember you with the reforms you brought. Yeah. I think the reforms he has tried to bring into the education sector, and of course called by the president's decision to form a task force just to be able to review it, was actually very commendable. And I think Kenyans will remember him with the CBC. He was very down to earth. You could see him sit in classrooms with as low as pre-primary school students, and just to be able to understand what happens in the education institution. And I think at the end of the day, it's double tragedy, as what everybody is saying. And I think that usually we say that he has walked his journey, he has done his part, and it's reached his time to go and rest. And I think that's he's just led us. He's gone ahead of us.
Yes, Stan.
Yes, I think I also join other Kenyans and the people of Ratudi village in Game constituency, Siaya County, for the big loss they have lost. Professor Magoha has really worked his way out, and Kenyans are really mourning. You can see the accolades they are now giving him. He's a man who has been a teetotaler in terms of education matters, and for sure Kenya has lost. And as my friend has said here, Kenyans remember him for the CBC and for the reforms he made while at the University of Nairobi. Right. So Kenyans are mourning. And I also heard that his brother also died while in the US. So it's really double tragedy for the people of Siaya and Kenya as a nation. Losing two professors at a go.
Is really not a good thing. And of course also for that family, in a span of 2 years, and you're losing all these very important figures and well-learned men, we can only say it is God's plan. Yes. So we shelve that one. It's a conversation that is still on. We'll be giving you updates, what is playing out. Like we have said, that it is clear now that the brother will be buried on Saturday, but we are yet to get details or the burial process that is of course for George Magoha to be announced, which will definitely do the moment this gets to hit the newsroom. Let's shelve that one. It's actually one of the key stories that is across all the papers this morning, but also, gentlemen, allow us to pick on some of them that are stories that are very, very important at this very point. And one of the biggest things, or one of the biggest tool that the Azimio side and generally Kenyans are using to hit the Kenya Kwanza government is on the question of the boost of the economy and the high cost of living. And to wake up to reports that Kenya Power, strikes again, and of course they have new proposals that if they sail through, then we're going to have an increase in the cost of electricity, is worrying. Is this going to, perhaps drain the image of the Kenya Kwanza government even more? Or we are being a little bit radical, hitting them too early, while they have constantly explained to us that, they inherited a government that was already on its knees, and therefore they are in the process of revival before they break even?
I think there's a lot of misconception when it comes to what government was inherited. Remember the deputy president then, who is currently the president, was part and parcel of that government. And I think this is where Kenyans are getting confused. When we talk about they inherited a government that was broke, who inherited a government that was broke? If not William Ruto himself, who was actually part and parcel of the previous government. I think the problem here is the economic policies that I think Kenya Kwanza crafted. And of course their campaign slogans. I think, once the price of electricity goes up, then price of even commodities will go up, because we're talking about fuel. Fuel, you cannot delink it from electricity. Electricity, you cannot delink it from fuel, and vis-a-vis food prices. So I think we need to just accept it and say that one of the greatest things that we need to be dealing with and solving now is the cost of living. Now, look, the government comes into power, and the first thing they say that we have 50 billion plus to give to the Hustler Fund. We needed them to think about subsidies, as opposed to saying that we are going to give people 500 shillings minimum, and these are loans. Secondly, the government comes in power, and the first thing they deal with, which they find is priority, is to deal with the IEBC commissioners. I think there's a lot of misplaced priorities. I think the government needed to just focus and say that 1 year or 100 days, we are dealing with food and the cost of living. The other political assignments that we might be having will fall in place as we grow the government. But look, the first thing they successfully formed a commission they brought a motion in parliament to kick out IEBC commissioners. They would have been bringing a motion in parliament to reduce and to mitigate the cost of living. This is when you look at a government as being serious and really serious to govern. Now, what are their priorities? We come into the office, and the first things we do in the first 100 days is that we ensure that the cost of living goes down, or we mitigate that, and we put measures to ensure that the price of food is tackled.
And some of these motions really presented in Parliament, just that in low tones and maybe not highlighted as these other ones are being highlighted. That is, of course, the question of the IEBC and a couple of others that we have seen, being highlighted as much. And so we say that we might not hit them so hard because you realize that every leader today speaks of the high cost of living. So they are privy to this information. Maybe, just maybe, it's the advice that is not proper, or if the advice then is proper, then maybe there's a problem in terms of just how times are tough, and therefore we should be giving them a little more time to address the same.
I think the other day we spoke about the first 100 days of the Jubilee, the Kenya Kwanza government. Sometimes we talk about the Jubilee government because most of the people who are today in leadership are just but an extension of the former Jubilee government.
Yeah.
As my friend puts here, is that look at what Azimio manifesto spoke about. Look at what the Kenya Kwanza government spoke about. So to me, Linda, if you ask me whether it is early or not for the Azimio brigade to caution or to criticize the Kenya Kwanza government, I think it's not late. We are 5 months into the Kenya Kwanza leadership. And therefore, as it is said, people actually voted in their leaders depending on their needs, on the needs they had prior to the election. And one of the needs that people were looking at was the cost of living. And as you have said vividly here, the prices of electricity continue plummeting. They are going higher and higher, which is a precursor to so many other economic things that will be happening. If the price of electricity goes up, it means that production of commodities will also go up. And in going up, it doesn't mean that the common Kenyan salary is also growing. The cost of transport is high. The cost of unga still is still very high. Sugar is still very high. So the Azimio leadership under Raila Odinga is on the right track to ensure that the Kenya Kwanza government actually executes what it promises. It promised the people, and in so doing, Kenyans will have some kind of reprieve. As in matters with the IEBC, I think it is quite a very difficult topic to talk about.
It's not difficult because it's here and we have to talk about it.
Because one,
yes,
the people we are talking about are out of office.
Then again, we are also looking forward to get other new faces.
Yes.
And therefore maybe we might shift from that conversation of the previous ones and leave it for those ones that feel like, well, their elections really were bungled at some point in time.
But we have to look at the history.
Yes, the history we look at.
Yes.
But then you say it is difficult to look at that. But I mean, beyond the history, the commissioners that we're going to bring on board, is one conversation that really we can't run away from. And when you hear the Right Honorable Raila Odinga saying that, well, the government then would want to interfere into these processes and calling upon the government to leave it bare and open so that due process is followed, then you ask yourself, just what has he seen that really is not in order? Does he have a feeling that maybe the government would want to interfere with this? And you know very well that when the executive then interferes, clearly then this ceases to be an independent commission.
Yeah, sure. You cannot delink the government from institutions in this country, whether you like it or not. Because at the end of the day, whether we have commissioners in place that have been vetted by parliament, and so they will have still to be confirmed by the president somehow. So Raila Odinga has history, has some kind of experience in matters handling the IEBC. We remember he has really fought for reforms in the IEBC, some of them which have brought fruits, but some of them which have not. So the reason why I was saying it's a little difficult, we are actually probing the former IEBC commissioners. And at the same time, we are also looking at forming a new IEBC by appointing new commissioners. So there must be some kind of balance, both by the opposition, civil society, as well as the government itself, in ensuring that there is independence of institutions. It is not just about the IEBC. We are speaking about the IEBC, but also other institutions. Today, as we speak, Kenyans are at crossroads. They don't know who to believe. They don't know whether to believe that the president won. They don't know whether to believe that the opposition claiming that it won. So matters to do with the IEBC needs people who have sanity and they have sobriety in matters leadership of this country. Yes.
Okay, gentlemen, allow us to take a short break and we come back to you, Wafula. We get your view on the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, the outgoing one, as well as that one that we're not even sure about because we do not know the fate of Maset, but most importantly, the commissioners that are to come on board, because Siola here will tell you that they still are on a mission to get the country amending its constitution, and therefore this process, if at all, is going to go back to the people. The commissioners will be at the heart of it. The Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission is very instrumental into this process. So we really cannot just look at it, without the keenness that it deserves. So we take a quick short break and we come back on that very note.
Here, like you see, these are the fabrics we use for the sofas. Yeah, there are different types of fabrics. Sabak.
This is the best way to go. Eat color, eat raw, like this is alive.
Well, 2022 is behind us. 2023 is here with us. What are your plans? We here at TV47's Morning Cafe have great plans for you. We're talking about information, we're talking about entertainment, we're talking about the greatness for the year. So make sure that you're always with us every morning.
Kwa muonekano wao hauwezi ukajua waliopitia. Kwa sura zao zinapong'aa, hauwezi ukafahamu changamoto zao. Nyuma yao ipo stori la historia. Katika kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi, tunakupa nafasi kuweza kuwafahamu kila siku ya Alhamisi kuanzia saa 1:30 kuendelea. Nami Elizabeth Mutu.
Your health matters and Body Garage is here to guide you on it.
Someone's after using the medication, the virus number of the HIV in someone's body will start to go.
My medication, wherever I go, I must make sure I'm committed to my medication. Yes. And I should watch what I'm eating. I should not just eat from everywhere or not just eat anything.
We talk mental, physical, and spiritual health. Join us every Thursday at 8 p.m. Farming? Well, Kilimo Diaries is your home for different farming ventures, crops, animals, and so much more. Every Sunday, with a new year comes endless possibilities, and as we continue to tell the stories of those abled differently, do make sure to join us on Beyond the Limit every Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Of untold stories.
In studio, Evans Wafula and Stan Alusiola, as we unpack some of the events in the country. And so, Wafula, we come to you. The Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, you know, then, now, and what is supposed to be in the future?
I think we've started at a wrong footing when it comes to the IEBC.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's an active tribunal that is already investigating the commissioners. Of course, one commissioner is still actively, and the other day, the former chair was giving testimony.
Yeah.
I think we should actually have waited and seen the outcome of this tribunal. Probably it would have actually given a verdict that would exonerate her, and in the same breath, exonerate the rest, even though they have decided to step aside. So that was it's really premature. But then looking at the interference, you see, there's always been that problem that the political machinations that actually surrounds the whole process of electing commissioners is what then makes the credibility of that institution to be questionable. And I think what the president is doing now is really a real risk. And Raila has already mentioned it. I think that we need now to understand that the process of electing or appointing commissioners to this body should be done in a very transparent and very careful and with a lot of consultation. It's not like the president is being rushed by some other political players to quickly form and constitute a commission, which then will be rejected by probably a lot of people. So I think it is a high time that the political class and we the people to be able to ensure that the next commission that is being established is probably established with a lot of consensus and a lot of consultation.
Yeah.
And that is where then we will be able to gauge the independence of that commission. Today everybody is saying, and you had Raila saying that this is actually an outfit of Kenya Kwanza. You see?
Yeah.
And then if they are allowed to establish that commission, then everybody will doubt it, whether it's a referendum to reform the constitution, whether it's going to be the next election, because people say, you know, without a proper independent commission, there will be no need for people to go for election, because the result will be already been predetermined. So I think the most important thing for people to do is that I think the president should go slow on this and ensure that there's a lot of consultation and within the political elite, both the political divide, to be able to reach a consensus and to ensure that the process is done in a more transparent way.
This is largely a political process, and no matter how much we are looking forward to get an independent body, we cannot run away from the political aspect of it. We also are looking at timelines, and you understand very well that, you know, you want to think of a scenario where in the event that we have by-elections, and as a country we are set and ready with commissioners, we might need to remind ourselves of what played out during the times of President Uhuru Kenyatta, that, you know, months to the general election is when now we're bringing commissioners on board. Just how can we even trust that?
But Linda,
yes.
A political process, we should not always hide on that phrase that this is a political process. Political processes can actually be fair if there is consensus building. so that we do not actually say that it's a political process, so it is actually supposed to be handled by a certain group of people. A political process that encourages and allows participation.
If the Cherera or if the opaque moment did not come, would you have concluded, as many are concluding, that the Cherera 4 were literally installed there by the previous regime?
But it's also fair to say opaque moment. You see, let me tell you, you see, one of the things that I really give credit where credit is due. I think Chebukati has supervised the previous election where even the Supreme Court found him culpable in actually bungling almost the 2017 election. But having new commissioners who came into the commission and agreed with him to conduct an election. And this is where people are saying, we know we don't want to talk about what is already in the tribunal. But I think the preemptive nature of our politics is that when you dissent, you are told that you are against. So I think, for me, I think is that there was no problem, and I repeated, there is no problem with the commission. The problem was with the chair. And I can tell you that the problem was with the chair of the commission. Look, I felt very embarrassed, Linda, for sure, to see Chebukati coming before the tribunal and making very serious allegation and thinking that he's going to walk free. You see, for the first time, I have seen a state officer, actually not a state, an officer from an independent commission coming to make allegations that he cannot even himself substantiate. First, he claims death threats. Secondly, he has now come and claimed about bribery. Fourth, he has come and accused one of the most serious institutions in our national security and our democracy, which is the Security Council. You see, there are things that you as somebody who has worked in an office like Chebukati's, today as we speak, there's a Security Council that has been formed around Ruto's government. Its duty is very clear, to brief the president. Imagine if you tomorrow comes and kills it and generalize those people and demonize them. That is what Chebukati is attempting to do.
And that is a democratic right.
It is, let me tell you, can I tell you something?
Yes.
Democracy should not be treated absolute. You see, you cannot come here tomorrow and say it's my democratic right to actually even do things that you cannot yourself comprehend.
And speak the truth. You think he cannot comprehend that?
Do you know something?
That?
Do you know something? Chebukati is a crybaby. And I think the kind of sympathy he's trying to do. I said there last time that I personally have no respect for him, and even what he was trying to say to the commission, to the tribunal yesterday, that is his own words. Because why even himself wait until when he resigns or when his term comes to an end, then comes and gives such evidence? We are saying Chebukati has a lot of things that he has done that are not. I don't actually agree with him at all, that he would have actually redeemed those things a long time ago.
Right.
After the 2017 election, what happened, he was pointed out by the Supreme Court to have actually been the main culprit of what happened in that election. Instead, he went back to his office and bungled out Chiloba. But he stayed in that office, not doing what Kenyans expected him to do. He has led us to another election. Look at these allegations that are coming up from the whistleblower. If those things are proved to have taken place, where will his character stand? Where is his reputation going to stand? So those are the things that we really need to look when you're talking about these commissions, that people who are elected in this commission should be beyond reproach.
Rigorous processes in getting some of these commissioners, and Chebukati, give it to him, he has managed to go to the last day of his reign, which is historic, or so to speak, especially when you look at the previous independent electoral and boundaries commissions. And therefore, for that reason, it becomes even hard to paint him with a bad brush, or a dirty brush for that matter, because then he goes down in history as the first ever to have finished his reign, completed his term successfully. So even as you look at him, rigorous processes in terms of getting these individuals and the involvement of members of parliament who are representatives of the people. Really, what will it take for us to get a clean one? And looking at the history of independent electoral and boundaries commissions or the electoral bodies that are across the global fraternity, are across Africa, there's always that aspect of lack of belief, not just from the leaders but equally from the people. Is it time that maybe we look into how we handle some of these processes, and especially the election?
Yeah, the last time I was here, I think I made a proposal that the formation of the Electoral and Boundaries Commission has to be, the membership has to be broadened.
Yeah.
We have 47 counties, and therefore I propose that we need to have a commissioner of some sort from each county, representing the whims or even the representing each county on that particular platform. And therefore it will be very difficult to have 47 commissioners agreeing to be buttressed by one chairman. Surely a lot happened in 2022 prior to the declaration of results. And as Mr. Wafula says, Chebukati was the playboy. He was managing at least everything, even in terms of purchase of electoral materials, the IT system, all these manner of things. The buck stopped with him. And therefore, as you have put it, there is need for a new renaissance in terms of getting an electoral body that is accepted across. Because look at what is happening now. The president is in defense of the former IEBC commissioners. Azimio is in defense of the Cherera 4. We don't want to have this particular kind of thing happening again in 2027 onwards, because really we are always at the breaking point each time we get into politics, especially when we want to elect the president. It's like, and I said it and I repeat it, that when we get to the presidency, it is either I get it or I get it. And that is why you see some of the commissioners actually take sides. As he puts it, that the Cherera 4 were deemed to be for Azimio, and Chebukati with the other two commissioners were deemed to be pro-Kenya Kwanza. And this is something that the Kenyan people, the civil society, the church, the common person should be in a position to be involved, so that we get a body that without the involvement of even the security agencies played a very big role in determining who actually was declared president. Had they not been there on that day, I don't think anything could have happened to promote peace in this country. So I still stand by it that it is a rigorous process, yes, but who is this that is going to be appointed to the commission? And who are these that will be involved in the appointing of these particular people? One, let us have at least a representation from each county, and then these people will have to sit somewhere and make deliberations on who will be the chair, who will now be on the topmost level to decide some of the things that...
How realistic is that? To imagine that we could have, commissioners from across the 47 countries.
I know it's a very outrageous proposal, but it can be done.
Okay.
Yes.
And that, having an individual from every county, then they will come to represent the interests of these individuals. Is it about the counties or it's about the Kenyans?
What I would say is that IEBC under Chebukati underpinned the political power of money, and how in an age where there's of course massive inequalities and irregularities when it comes to elections, and you saw it exposed how wealthy politicians would actually buy political influence and then undermine our democratic principles, even the rule of law. And that is why I'm saying that Chebukati under his tenure, we cannot also rule out bribery and corruption in the IEBC, and how it could actually determine how elections are conducted. So at the end of the day, yeah, we don't have to, you know, it is so difficult when we are talking about somebody who says, I have done my part, shauri yao, I have gone. Whatever they deal with, they let them deal with it. I think at the end of the day is that what happens is that we need to clean our electoral commission. Mm-hmm. We need to clean our electoral processes before we even think about going to the next election. And that is why I really commend the Azimio, is that it is good to point out all the rots in the IEBC. Because we are, as I said last time, that we are a democracy in transition. We cannot compare ourselves with countries where presidents resign, where ministers resign.
Why can't we?
Because that is why we are saying that when we are still in a country where ministers would rather die than resign. Where when you were elected a president, you don't actually, you really now start buying political patronage. This is where we have a problem. So I think we need to have a commission that is very free, independent, and that can actually be trusted by the people. I think that is where the problem is. Public confidence, public trust in the commission. It's not only the politicians. And if you understand that, that's why I was telling you last time that if it is true that 8.1 million Kenyans did not vote, yet they were registered to vote, we should be asking ourselves what was wrong with the IEBC? What was wrong with Chebukati? You cannot come and tell people that you conducted a peaceful, a credible, a successful election that disenfranchised over 8 million Kenyans. What happened? Why is it that you conducted civic education as Chebukati with your commissioners, registered voters, and 8.1 million Kenyans did not vote? We want to see an electoral process that does not disenfranchise people in whatever way, that we want to see the margin of error reducing when we go to a free, fair election. And these are the parameters that you would measure to measure. You see, for Chebukati, a successful election is when there's no, people are not fighting. Where there's no, where the opposition concedes or the loser concedes. To him, that is a successful election. Yeah. But for people like us who understand electoral processes, they begin not only by voting, even the procurement of voting, even the recruitment of polling officers, all that is a process. And that's why Maraga said that elections are a process. Yeah. And that is the process that we are saying that we need to get somebody who can sanitize and make that process more credible and more trusted by the people.
Is it pegged on an individual or individuals, or it is on the structures and the systems that we have? Political strategist and analyst Martin Ndati as well joins us this morning. Thank you so much, sir, for creating time to be with us this morning. And so we are discussing the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission and what needs to be done for us to get a formidable body in terms of the commission as it stands right now, the allegations made by the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, but generally the previous occurrences that we've witnessed, you know, the previous commissioners that we've seen over years, now to this very point where we're talking about Masit, whose, you know, fate is yet to be known, and the next, you know, crop of commissioners that we're supposed to get on board. The Right Honorable Raila Odinga reminds the government it is important that it is a fair process, you know, as enshrined in the Constitution. Just how fair can it be, and how much of confidence do we have in the institutions that we have around? Because beyond the IEBC, the independent bodies that we have today are many, and the allegations of interference, and especially by the executive as well, have been out here.
Linda, we have a long way to go. And, you know, Raila and the Azimio team believe that the remedy lies in going back to IPPG. But you know, IPPG was not anchored in law. It was a gentleman's agreement. Yeah. And even after IPPG gave us a compromised, a form of compromise. The commission was negotiated. Then they delivered a referendum, which was accepted. They also delivered the election 2002 NAC, which was largely perceived to have been the most credible election we have ever had. But in 2007, you know, we had issues. Of course, after Martha Karua, who was the Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs then, advised the late President Kibaki to disregard the IPPG when now they were picking new commissioners. So from that time, 2007, we had a very volatile election, and it led to chaos, and we were on the brink of collapse as a nation. Then Isaac Hassan came in, who was also brought in, and there was some thinking that he will try to sanitize the processes, but it didn't work. Then now we have Chebukati. But you know, we had an initial, the initial arrangement was there was the Kiraitu and Orengo-led commission, a tribunal. It was not a tribunal, it was actually a task force. It was a form of compromise also. And they tried to bring in commissioners. But the main problem we have been having is trust and moral issues. You know, you cannot legislate morality. You can't force people that when they get into those public offices, they will do what is expected of them. So we still have a very long way to go as a country. And you saw before we got the Cherera 4, we had Ngath and the other 3 commissioners who also resigned.
Yes.
And they resigned complaining about the way Kati was running the show. So, I mean, you can't tell us that, you can tell us the Cherera 4 had a problem, because even their selection, there was quite a bit of mediocrity and a lot of compromise. I tried to influence one or two, to get a few things done, and we were monitoring what was happening around there. And some of the commissioners were brought in because they were friends or relatives of the people who were wielding power then. Yeah. So it was not largely based on merit. But you know, if there was a problem with the Cherera 4, the question is, why was there again a problem with the other 4 who had left? So Chebukati must have also been a problem in that commissioner. So his performance of duties raises quite a bit of questions. But you know, now we are in a very awkward position, because Ruto is a president. He has, the constitution mandates him to appoint the panel. And you know, he gave the proposal where they tried to effect the amendment, which he has already signed into law. So that is the basis on which now we are going to have the new panel formed. Yeah. And it is on that basis that we will have a new commission constituted. Although if you move around out there on the street, there is already word that they will pick Nyachai, Charles Nyachai as the chair of the commission. And so you see, that tells you the commission is, if the president is a player, and now you expect him, he's picking the referee. So naturally, he will pick a referee who will make sure that he wins the election of 2027. So his eyes are focused on the ball. So as Raila makes noise out there in the street, because what Raila is trying to do is not anchored in law. So you cannot force Ruto to now include, come in and bring in people from outside to sit on the panel. Yeah. Because he'll tell you the law is very clear. And Raila is trying to go back into history to see if it can help him. But you know, these are two hardliners. Ruto is a hardliner, Raila is another hardliner. So Ruto will tell Raila, look, I'm sticking on the constitution, and I swore to protect the constitution and other relevant laws. So there's no way I'm going to try and bring in people without following due process. Yeah. So that causes quite a bit of a challenge for the country. And
as you come in, we have had allegations on the faces that are being brought to the fore and on board, and we also understand very well constitutionally what then the chair is supposed to be in terms of even their career. And there are instances you could hear that, well, Ruto has been a friend of Chebukati for the longest of time. Even those ones that left, then cadres as well, you know, were rewarded later, and I don't know whether that's a reward, you know, with positions as ambassadors and all that. So you ask yourself, after all said and done, these are all politicians and they are friends. To what level should we continue following the laws in relation to bringing the commissioners on board? Is it time that we review on this? But then the review proposed by Alusiola a question mark as well.
One thing I want to say is that Kenyans have matured politically. And I think Kenya Kwanza, Ruto has always been the one who said, Wakenya wameruvuka.
Yeah.
I think, let's be very honest. I don't think at this time, even Ruto wants to take that risk of making or doing it like a one-man show. He knows the consequences. I think Kenyans have matured politically to the level whereby any form of resistance will be something that he is also prepared to. Because let me tell you, he has talked about IPPG. We know the journey to IPPG. It was not an easy journey. And we know where we have reached in terms of attempting to have an independent commission. And I think if President Ruto is, as he's always put himself, and as a God-fearing man, and somebody who wishes well for the country, I think you are not making this commission or these laws for yourself. It's not for Raila Odinga, it's not for William Ruto. If they're doing this for the interest of the country, then I don't see any worry for them to rescind and sit down and say, we are going to have a commission that will serve both this time, next election, and even the preceding elections. But if you are going to form a commission, which I totally agree with my colleague here, if you are going to form a commission to serve the purpose of 2017, you can do 2027. You can as well do that, knowing that even after 2027, we are having another one.
Yes.
So I think that is where Kenyans don't want to go. If President Ruto's or the kind of persuasion he's trying to bring on the table and the kind of influence he's trying to assert on this process is for 2027, he can get his way for 2027. But that's not what happens. And then after that, and that is why you need to ask, what legacy will he be?
But after that, you know very well that we have seen across Africa, most of the presidents will want to install their very own, and therefore, even after that, you know very well that they're still...
But for Kenya, what I'm repeating it is that we've been told that Kenyans have matured politically.
But how, when you say...
I was talking to my colleague just before the show, and I was saying that after 2022, I think that is 2002, is the last time we witnessed, after Moi, is when we witnessed the most political opposition in this country. I think the likes of, from then there's been a handshake or a coalition or a gentleman agreement. We have not witnessed a political landscape where we have a severe political opposition that can take government. And I think I want to give kudos to Azimio, that if they are going to come out and seriously check and hold the government accountable, I don't think what we are discussing here, that Ruto will do this, it's not even about the constitution. It's about the will of the people. And I think...
But maybe, my brother here is having...
Allow us to take a short break, gentlemen, a quick one, and then we come back on that way.
Yes.
Yeah, like you see, these are the fabrics we use for the sofas. Yeah, there are different types of fabrics.
Sabak.
This is the best way to go. Eat color, eat raw, you know, like this is alive.
Well, 2022 is behind us. 2023 is here with us. What are your plans? We here at TV47's Morning Cafe have great plans for you. We're talking about information, we're talking about entertainment, we're talking about the greatness for the year. So make sure that you're always with us every morning.
Kwa muonekano wao hauwezi ukajua waliopitia, kwa sura zao zinapong'aa hauwezi ukafahamu changamoto zao. Nyuma yao ipo stori la historia. Katika kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi tunakupa nafasi kuweza kuwafahamu kila siku ya Alhamisi kuanzia saa 1:30 kuendelea. Nami Elizabeth Mutuku.
Your health matters, and Body Garage is here to guide you on it.
Someone's, after using the medication, the virus number of the HIV in someone's body will start to go.
My medication, wherever I go, I must make sure I'm committed to my medication. Yes, and I should watch what I'm eating. I should not just eat from everywhere or not just eat anything.
We talk mental, physical, and spiritual health. Join us every Thursday at 8 p.m. Lover of farming? Well, Kilimo Diaries is your home for different farming ventures, crops, animals, and so much more. Every Sunday, with a new year comes endless possibilities, and as we continue to tell the stories of those abled differently, do make sure to join us on Beyond the Limit every Saturday at 7:30 p.m.
It's a new year, and with a new year, it means new business ideas, new
of untold stories.
In studio, Martin Andatis, Tana Luciola, as well as Evans Wafula. And gentlemen, you wanted to come in as to that question, perhaps just to start with you, Stan.
Yes.
And then we take it to Martin.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment something on the reason why 8.1 million Kenyans did not go to vote. I think it's because of the lack of trust in the IEBC. If the IEBC is structured in a way that it is representative of the whims of the people, people are going to vote. But imagine you're going to cast your vote and the outcome is not representative of your decision to vote for a particular person or a particular coalition or a particular party. Sometimes you don't feel like your voice is being heard.
But just what then is to be politically woke? Wafula acknowledges that we have all felt like there's that stride that we've made democratically and also in terms of understanding the games of politics in the country. So to understand to a level where you can say now, let me not go and vote, knowing very well that even failing to vote is as good as voting, because then you will not have elected the president that you'd want to represent you.
Yeah, that is very true. But the issue underlying everything is, how do you feel after you voted and you feel like your vote has not counted? Mm-hmm. Yeah, many Kenyans did not vote, for sure. Yeah. And not just in Nairobi, but across the country. So there is need to recultivate the trust of the IEBC to the Kenyan people. Otherwise, every election we will have 50% or more of the electorate not going to vote, because they believe, many Kenyans said, I would rather vote for the governor, the MP and MCA or women rep, because it's like the presidential vote has already been predetermined. So there must be some kind of mechanism that will bring the Kenyan electorate back to the booth, to the voting booth, in order to make those decisions. Mm-hmm. And as Martin has put it, there is a lot of history that every time we want to go to an election, we have to fight for at least some kind of supremacy in the IEBC. These are things that we need to really fight and see that we have institutions that are working. Otherwise, in 2027, we will vote for the president. Most likely people are thinking that the only competitive election that is going to come will be in 2032, because they feel like the president is already laying ground for his re-election at the expense of the most critical issues that have to be looked at. So 2027 is coming. Raila is trying, he's very personal, because I know in 2027, if he's going to vie, that is his last stab. But then after 2027, 2032 also, we will have competing forces for who will become president. Are we also going to look at the IEBC again? I think the president has to leave some kind of legacy, not in terms of his leadership as the president, but even as he leaves office, we do not want to see these wrangles taking place at the IEBC again.
The bloodline of every activity in a nation is politics, Martin, as you speak to what it is that the gentlemen also say. We then want to understand, what will it take for us to get our voters, interested in the democratic process, that is the voting process? Do we come to a space where we say it should be mandatory? Because as it is, we have a problem. And looking at the number of registered voters that we had previously, clearly the youth numbers going down. That is to say they are not interested in the questions of politics, yet we keep saying that they are the future. Just what, until then, perhaps we find a different mechanism to making sure that we have the political space in order?
The youth were not very keen even on registering. You noticed?
Yes.
When IEBC sent out word that the youth should go and register, most of them were not interested. And the explanation they were giving is the politicians are still the same. Even if you vote Ruto, even if you vote Raila, or you vote Wajakoya, maybe Wajakoya came in with some new ideas, although he lost momentum at some point, but he had started off very well. But the youth are not seeing any hope. So to them, voting Raila, voting Ruto means it's the same. And I think they are getting vindicated. You remember the promises Ruto promised. Now it's 4 or 5 months down the line. When I was coming, they are talking about raising the cost of power. So when you raise the cost of electricity, it means everything else will go up.
Yeah.
Because production is largely based on energy. So you see, he talked about lowering the prices of foodstuffs. Now nobody's talking about that. Now he's talking about 1 year. There are issues about the university loans, and as we are talking, all our universities have collapsed. They can barely pay the salaries, they can barely sustain themselves. They're actually in the red. So all these things the politicians were promising were hollow. And they knew that the capacity to fulfill them was not there. But you see, they were looking for votes. So you can't force people now to make it, you can't make it mandatory that they must go out there and vote. It's up to them. The numbers are huge. The 8.1, and you see that is, interestingly, that is the same number Raila claims that he won the elections with. So you see, it tells you whoever was doing the numbers for him was not very intelligent. Yeah, what they have just simply done is taken the number of the people who didn't vote and claimed now those are the numbers Raila got.
Okay.
Yeah, so, cheating needs a lot of intelligence.
And so in that means you are trying to say that this whistleblower conversation is just hot air. And where are they headed,
I wouldn't take it seriously because, if there was evidence, they should have given Raila that evidence to use in court.
Yeah.
That would have made a lot of sense.
You must have heard Makau Mutua saying that it's not easy to collect evidence and therefore they needed time to work on this, and now finally they have it and they will do anything in their powers, if not in their powers, anything that is enshrined in law, which I would want to know how far we can extend, past the Supreme Court in terms of making sure that, well, truly, if their numbers are correct, then justice is found.
They want, talking about numbers, banding numbers around left, right, and center is not going to help them much. And they could be trying to raise pertinent issues. But, Azimio largely didn't even have agents. Raila, as a presidential candidate, didn't have agents in most of the polling stations.
Really?
Yeah, he didn't.
Well, and they have come to acknowledge that.
Yeah, he had
problem.
the backing of a sitting president,
Right.
and they had enough resources to deploy agents. They didn't. So they left the other side to have a field day. Now you come in belated. You see, even when they went to the Supreme Court, they didn't have proper evidence. Then they started running around. Then you go carrying truckloads of stuff. That now that is the evidence. But it turns out there was nothing much in those truckloads.
Right.
So Ruto, and Ruto has worked with Raila before. He can predict with certainty how Raila is going to move. And that's why you see him laughing and saying that Raila is not coming up with anything new. Because he knows after this move, the next move will be this. So it's very easy for him now to try and checkmate what Raila is planning to do.
Did it not surprise you?
My brother here is saying they will go back to the days of the opposition. The dynamics have completely shifted. You know, getting people who will be committed to the cause, the way the likes of Akina Mukisa, we had a very vibrant opposition after 1992. But you know, the dynamics those days, 92, 97, completely changed. So you can't now imagine that we are going to go back to that era where people are going, we will have a very vibrant opposition in parliament, which is going to hold this government in check. That you know, the MPs now are thinking about self-preservation. You've seen them, the way they have pushed for CDF.
Yes, successfully.
Successfully.
Yeah.
The executive has had to accede to give them the money. They also know now the power of money. The governors, and you know, the governance structure has also completely changed. We have now governors, we have the women rep. Immediately after you give the MPs money, the next lot of noise, the group of people who will be making noise are the women rep. They will want their ngaff. So, because they also need money to be able to do the project.
This government promised the senators as well.
That is it, and the senators will be the next one. Then the MCAs will also be coming in and asking for their money. And as of yesterday, you saw the chairman of the finance committee of the Council of Governors, who is my governor, saying that for 4 months they have not received money. They have not received money for October, November, December, and now January is gone. So, and you know, we don't have that kind of money. There are serious challenges because the economy is not doing very well. So the government is struggling to raise revenues. And you know, Ruto thought you just go issuing statements and telling people, lipa ushuru, then people go pay. But you know, they can pay if they have the money. If they don't have the money, you can't get money from a store, you know. So the economic activities are not there. The government is the greatest consumer of goods and services. The national government, it's not spending. The counties are only paying salaries. They don't have money for recurrent expenditure for development. So it tells you that if all the 48 government levels of 48 governments are not working, don't have money to spend, then the economy will not, you can't spur this economy. So we are having a very difficult situation, and most of those promises are made. 1 year by June, don't be surprised to find, apart from the Hustler Fund, maybe that is the only thing they have achieved. All the others are still promises. Then a bit of fertilizer, but even that fertilizer, and you know when Ruto talks, you occasionally see quite a bit of ignorance in some of those statements. Because when he says within 6 months, they will have digitized 5,000 functions, government functions. You know, it's not practical. And I saw you at State House, I thought you would ask him that question. But you
I failed in that case. Yeah.
You guys were asking him the soft questions. Because if you want to do, you know, government procedures, you can't take shortcuts. You can't. If you want to do anything in government, you have to put them out there. You have to advertise, then you have to go through the procurement process. There will be objections. There are people who lose will go to the appeals board. And by the time you finish all that, it takes a year or so.
I will ask you this so that I counter that blow that you've thrown my way, and ask this. With this knowledge, even as they make promises, I can almost tell that this is realistic, this is not. Why the excitement, that we have as Kenyans, and those ones that understand really do not come out to counter some of the promises that are accorded to us by some of these leaders during the campaign moments, to even imagine that they say in 100 days I'll do this, things that are clearly not realistic. Why do we allow for this to sell through?
Because the media, you give them platform.
Why does it have to be about the
why
don't we have people come to question and counter?
Well, we did. Some of us did, and I still.
So
we have raised those issues, and nobody took them seriously.
So is it unfair for us?
The good thing is that's why you see the 8.1 million Kenyans not turning up to vote.
Yes.
Because they know this is hollow. They know what is being promised. The youth want jobs, for heaven's sake.
Right.
As we are talking, the media houses are all retrenching. They have really retrenched.
Yes.
Yeah, and the ones which are still afloat, they are either paying you guys half salary, So, and you will find if you are supposed to do 6 hours, you end up doing 8.
Yeah.
Then the terms are not good. That's the truth.
So the
jobs are being lost, and all the sectors, across all sectors,
Yes.
The other day you saw some of us who play in the land sector, where I'm a professional. We have a problem. You saw the surveyors and the lawyers in the streets.
On the streets, yes.
Because when Farida was minister, she messed up the sector completely. She cheated herself that working with the military, they can digitize the records. And that now you just go online and you will be able to do the transactions and all that. You imagine that somebody in the village there has a smartphone. How many villagers have smartphones? So people who don't have the ability even to buy themselves food, you believe they will be having a smartphone to do their transactions online? It's not possible, So, and you see, the other day, they brought in new machines for VAT. So they claim now they are going to collect more money. But we know how these guys operate. That is a tender which has been, there was no tendering, there was no advert, there was no nothing, So how are those machines procured?
This is business.
Initially, it's business for them, for the big boys. So you funded our campaigns, yes. So the only way I'll help you to get back your money is we change these machines, then you supply the machines. The machines, I'm told, were being initially sold at 150,000. Now it has come down to about 50,000. Okay. So when was the tendering for those machines done? When, so they are taking shortcuts. And now that they have powers and they believe they have the courts in their pocket, they can do what they feel they can do.
And reality then will dawn. In as much as we'd want to look at what the Right Honorable Raila Odinga and the Azimio team is doing and say that maybe forget about the numbers that they're presenting, the numbers from the whistleblower, look at the realities on ground, that eventually, as Martin would say, 1 year down, we will not have achieved so much. And therefore, recipe for an uprising, recipe for a revolution, that on this basis, the Azimio conversation will be propelled, because then they will come and tell us that, look, they promised this, they have not managed. However much we know that, realistically speaking, some of these promises really are not achievable.
One of the things I want to say, just to follow up on what you have said, is that IEBC has created a very fragile political landscape. And one of the things is that you must take serious Raila's numbers, 6.9 against 7.1. That's where Ruto has a problem. Let's not pretend.
Not the 8 million that they are claiming. Let's just look at what the IEBC
think about this number. That margin between 6.9 and 7.1, you must take Raila serious. That is a fact. You see, there are things we talk on political podiums and forums, and we ignore that we are talking about Raila Odinga, who had 6.9 million voters, if that is the case, and is somebody who you can just know. He's not Wajakoya. I don't know how many.
Wajakoya. Who's working with him right now.
But I'm just saying that in any democracy, and that is what I'm trying to put across, is that in any mature democracy, Raila is not somebody you can wish away. He can hold this government at a standstill.
Up until now?
And let me tell you, when he comes out and says that this is the route I am going to take, people must be worried. And especially the government must be worried. They need to sit down. Let me tell you, it's not handshake or anything. But And that is the problem IEBC has gotten ourselves asked into. If they could actually conducted an election where we would see a margin of error to be 2 million votes, let's say 8 million, these 8 million should not be 8 million Kenyans who did not vote, but we'd be talking about 1.5 million Kenyans did not vote. Yeah. And Ruto has 15 million votes against Raila 9 million. We would actually be talking about a government that is popular, with a popular vote, against an opposition that has substantive vote but is not a popular vote. So we are talking about a situation whereby we have a president who has been elected with 7.1 million, 6.9 for the opposition, and 8.1 did not vote. This kind of a situation that we are in, it is unprecedented.
How is that a factor?
And that why is a factor, because then you have this descending voice that is so strong and very relevant. Look, he has mentioned about Ruto as a way of getting people from the opposition. Most of them are nominated. You look, a nominated MP going to Kenya Kwanza, it is as good as...
They are not just nominated. You have people like Irene Njoki.
I'm saying there are those who are nominated.
Quite a number of them are
let me tell you.
Career House from
my point
Kalau.
Is this.
Strong politicians for that.
My point is this. Even for Ruto, and the people in Kenya Kwanza know, that if, for example, he's to go to Kenya Kwanza and he was in Azimio, including his constituency, who elected him, voted for Raila, elected him in Azimio ticket, and he decides tomorrow to go to Kenya Kwanza, he's not adding any value. Okay. The only thing that is creating a political perception. And this political perception is trying to create is that I have moved my people to Ruto, which is not always the truth. I think, and I really agree with him when he says that most of these politicians are going there for their own personal interest. It's all the power of political money, the power of money in politics. So at the end of the day, I am very sure that where there's an Azimio candidate who has gone to Kenya Kwanza, there's a checkmate who is now feeling that a vacuum has been left for him, because all these politicians had competing at checkmates when it came to political competition. So I think that's not a big issue for me. But the biggest challenge that I'm looking and I'm foreseeing is that in a scenario where we have that kind of an election, that just the concluded election, I think we really need to prepare and ensure that we have even dialogue across the board.
This did not come as a surprise. It was a tight race, and we kept on saying it was a two-horse race. It was the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, and it was, then Deputy President William Ruto. And as to what the Constitution says, it's a 50+1 affair, which then, what was declared clearly declares Ruto as the winner. I mean, why should it be a factor that we're talking about the numbers right now, as though to blackmail, as though to, to tell the president that, remember, you're there. I don't know whether on merit or not, on merits, because clearly he attained the 50+1. Why should we be making so much noise about the fact that, it was more of a 50-50 affair? Is it the first time that we're getting something that is close to a 50-50 affair, really?
I think we are talking about the numbers because of the whistleblower thing. Because now the whistleblower has come and said, look, Raila won with 8.1.
And I think that's why I started by asking, overlook the numbers for a moment.
Yes.
And look at, the promises that were accorded to us, to the people, or, to the people by the government, the economic emancipation, this and that is not being done right now. Is this recipe for an uprising, a resolution, without looking at the numbers?
The president must put his foot down. Today, the president is in Senegal talking about food security. How secure is his own country in terms of food? So he must he must go down and relook at his manifesto. Sit his cabinet secretaries down and say, look, this is what I promised the people. We promised the people that the cost of living is going to go down. And in that promissory note, how can we then start pulling these things down? One, let him look at the prices of food. Let him come on board with the Kenya Power and Lighting and sit down and look, how can we bring down the cost of electricity? If he doesn't do that, if he doesn't bring the cost of food down, if he doesn't bring the cost of education down, if he doesn't bring so many things into order, for sure there will be an uprising. You know, I was watching the Kamukunji rally the other day.
Yes.
Kenyans are very idle. Kenyans are ready to go and listen to an alternative voice. And the reason why they want to listen to an alternative voice is that they feel like the government of the day is not delivering on what they promised.
You know, Professor Macharia Munene argues and says that, Kamukunji is fairly a small ground you can easily fill up. I don't know whether what we saw then was a clear indication that the right honorable
Can Professor
himself
feel like
however small it is, however small it is, it's a precursor to bigger things.
Yeah. Okay.
Because you feel Kamukunji today, people feel like whatever the opposition is talking, whatever Raila Odinga is speaking about, whatever Wajakoya is talking about today, and all that those other leaders make sense, they will go to Jacaranda and feel it. Professor will still say Jacaranda is a small place. They will go to Mombasa and fill the stadiums. And for sure, the president today will feel the heat. Because he already said, look, I know the game plan. Those guys are not talking about anything serious. All they want to do is join government. Raila has said, no, I don't want a handshake. I want to ensure that justice is served, and served correctly. Therefore, it is not, you cannot wish Raila away, as he puts it. Because I said here the other day, look, there are 50+% of Kenyans not watching news. Because they say, that is not my president. You feel? So, if the president wants to endear himself to the people, he must at least in one way or the other, ensure that there is a reprieve for the people. Food prices going down, people will listen. Okay, what is the president saying? The price of food has gone down. Transport has gone down. Children are going to school without much hassle. Then they will listen to the president and say, okay, the opposition leader is doing his work. The president is delivering. So we have somehow a balanced nation. Otherwise, as you have put it, in the next 6 months or 1 year, as Ndati says, that they will have only been successful in administering the Hustler Fund, which is 500 shillings per individual, and 500 shillings, to say the truth. If you leave your house today in the morning, you are going to industrial area, use transport, coming back home, have some chapati mandondo, your 500 is as well as done. And you're going back in the house, people still need to eat. So the Hustler Fund, however much they say it is successful in its administration, but it's still a big, big failure.
They say that's a rich man's view. And that allow us to take a quick short break, and then we come understand just why is it that it's big about Raila Odinga. And in as much as the president would acknowledge that there's really nothing new that the Right Honorable is bringing on the table, is it cause for alarm for the Kenya Kwanza government? Should they worry looking at what played out in Kamukunji, what is expected of Jacaranda, and many other times? After this break.
Here, like you see, these are the fabrics we use for the sofas. Yeah, there are different types of fabrics. Sabak.
It is the best way to go. Eat color, eat raw, like this is alive.
Well, 2022 is behind us. 2023 is here with us. What are your plans? We here at TV47's Morning Cafe have great plans for you. We're talking about information, we're talking about entertainment, we're talking about the greatness for the year. So make sure that you're always with us every morning.
Kwa muonekano wao hauwezi ukajua waliopitia. Kwa sura zao zinapong'aa hauwezi ukafahamu changamoto zao. Nyuma yao ipo stori la historia Katika kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi tunakupa nafasi kuweza kuwafahamu kila siku ya Alhamisi kuanzia saa 1:30 kuendelea. Nami Elizabeth Mutuku.
Your health matters, and Body Garage is here to guide you on it.
Someone's, after using the medication, the virus number of the HIV in someone's body will start to go.
My medication, wherever I go, I must make sure I'm committed to my medication. Yes, and I should watch what I'm eating. I should not just eat from everywhere or not just eat anything.
We talk mental, physical, and spiritual health. Join us every Thursday at 8 p.m. Lover of farming? Well, Kilimo Diaries is your home for different farming ventures, crops, animals, and so much more. Every Sunday, with a new year comes endless possibilities, and as we continue to tell the stories of those abled differently, do make sure to join us on Beyond the Limit every Saturday at 7:30 p.m.
Last laps of this segment, and in studio, Evans Wafula, Stana Luciola, as well as Martin Andati. Martin, looking at the events of Kamkunji, looking at, I don't know whether I would call them threats, from the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, is it important that the Kenya Kwanza government then stays woke? Because again, you also don't want these sessions, in as much as they do not turn out chaotic. Perhaps it's going to make the country ungovernable, and just not overlooking the fact that Kenyans really have these tough times on their table, and therefore they want to have conversations revolving around this. Is the Right Honorable Raila Odinga really going to make it hard for them to manage?
He will not make the country ungovernable. The only thing he's going to do, he keeps Ruto and Gachagua busy, away from fulfilling the mandate.
Okay.
And they have fallen into Raila's trap. He's laid a trap to keep them busy. So instead of doing what they're supposed to do, and Raila enjoys, it's like wrestling a pig in mud. You can't win. So instead of now focusing on delivering on the promises, they are now focused on answering him back.
How can they claim then that they know him so well and therefore?
But you see, that's why I'm telling you, Raila does not have the mandate, and he doesn't have promises to fulfill because he's not in government.
Yeah.
So you will not hold him to account that in 2027 he didn't deliver on promises, because he'll tell you I was not in government. So the person who has government is Ruto and Gachagua. They are the ones who are elected, and they are the ones who have the mandate, irrespective of the margin with which they won. So instead of now focusing on delivering, they are now focused on answering him back.
So what's best
he keeps them very busy.
Yeah, what's best?
Because last week, this week he was in Kamkunji, then he'll go to Jacaranda. Next week he will be in another place. Then he has quite some serious falling out there, which you cannot wish away.
Yes.
So he keeps on mobilizing that support. He doesn't need to spend much money to be able to mobilize those crowds. The foot soldiers just do it for him. So these are the guys. You saw when he said he's going to Kamkunji, Ruto panicked. And he had to call the MPs to State House.
Yeah.
The Jubilee.
So the Jubilee MP.
Yes.
To prove a point,
so
it
you
was,
see, whatever he was supposed to do on that Monday, in terms of governance, he didn't do it.
Did not, yeah.
So that tells you, apart from calling the MPs, he was also busy watching on TV what the guy
Exactly.
is saying. And you see, that way Raila enjoys it. Because he knows now, today, he has not worked. I have basically managed to derail him from achieving whatever he was supposed to achieve today. So he loses focus. He doesn't deliver. And as long as he's not delivering, Raila keeps on hammering. And the people are listening, and they are saying, truly, what Raila is raising is true. The cost of power has gone up. The subsidies are gone. The cost of living is going up. So people can now start listening and saying, okay, much as Ruto is telling us we should not listen to this old man, but what he is raising are pertinent issues. So that way he gets sympathy, you know, and he will get now people listening to him, even if some of those MPs leave. He is now engaging with the people directly.
Yes.
So much as a few of the leaders would have moved politically, of course it helps Ruto in terms of getting the numbers in parliament to help him push the agenda in parliament. But now, Raila now knows, if I have lost the MPs, then let me deal with the masses. And Raila enjoys crowds.
Yes.
Once he sees the crowds, he goes hysterical. He thrives on crowds.
And now when we talk about, it's just like a week's difference, in as much as we say that, well, in politics, one day is as good as 100 years. That today he is in Siaya, the president, and his lieutenants, and they seem to get some good reception, so to speak. And some leaders also acknowledging with the blessings of Baba. Then immediately a week after, is a whole different conversation. So where then does this constitutional moment conversation disappear to?
Because Ruto is also dishonest.
Okay.
He played good boy. He never, he never talked about somebody planning to kill Chebukati. He should have said that before he went to Luo Nyanza. You would have seen the kind of reception you would have received. But he plays smart. True. Yeah, it's political conmanship. That's what he did. He knows he is going to Luo Nyanza, so he plays good boy.
Okay.
Then they even praise Raila, and Raila gets his troops to turn up in large numbers to receive Ruto.
Yeah.
Then immediately after he has finished the Nyanza tour, what does he do? He calls Chebukati to State House and says that there are people who are planning to kill him. The question is, if they wanted to kill him, why didn't they kill him? When they wanted to kill Musando, they killed him. So, yeah, okay. So if people want to kill, if they were, and they had the instruments of power, if they wanted to kill Chebukati, Chebukati will be gone. That's the truth of the matter. So anybody telling us that, they wanted to kill him, then what stopped them from killing him? Chebukati doesn't have an army. Chebukati didn't have the police. So he can't tell us that he had such serious security that would protect him,
Yeah.
So those are lies. And of course, they would want to give Chebukati a job as a reward. I'm told they want to appoint him in a court of appeal. That is what I hear in the streets.
Right.
So they would want to reward him, plus the other two commissioners. Now their tour of duty has ended, so they want something else to do. So you must look like you are a real hero, and you justify that by coming up with all sorts of allegations, so that at the end of the day, you are given some government job.
Yeah.
But there are still issues. What Raila is raising, we might not agree so much with the strategy and some of the approach. Of course, the timing is also questionable. But he's raising very pertinent issues. And in knowing, we've been in this country for a long time, Linda.
Yeah.
We were here when the IMF and World Bank came up with this thing called structural adjustment programs.
Right.
SAPs. The World Bank and IMF don't give you free money.
They say, do this.
It's not like the Chinese who can bring the money in briefcases in dollars.
Yeah.
They don't. they come in with, the first thing they'll tell you is restructure the civil service.
Yeah.
And the restructuring means sending people home. They are going to retrench. So it's not yet, we are just complaining. It's going to be very tough, I can tell you. Because they have abandoned China, they have gone to the West. So going to the West now means you play ball to the IMF and World Bank policies. The first thing they tell you is retrenchment. The second thing they tell you is to do away with all the subsidies. They will tell you to stop the subsidies on NHIF. They will tell you, even this money they are giving, the stipends they give the old men, the IMF and World Bank will tell them to stop it. Because they don't see, the World Bank and IMF don't believe in subsidies. Although, you know, it's a contradiction.
Yeah.
Because in the West, those who don't work, they are normally given meal cards.
Yeah.
They enjoy those benefits. But in Africa, they don't want you to.
We have to struggle on our own.
Yeah. So they give their old people stipends. They give them transport subsidies. You are given a food check if you are not working. But in Africa, they tell you no. You must do away with this. That's why you see the cost of power is meant to go up.
Yes.
Because what is happening? The subsidies that government was putting there are now being removed.
Yeah.
So remove subsidies on food, remove subsidies on education. And you see, you had President Ruto saying that they must have universities. They are going to reduce the numbers. So that is World Bank and IMF telling them that now you must reduce the number of people you are taking to universities.
Right.
So why are you subsidizing university education?
Yeah.
It is the IMF and World Bank which forced President Moi then, the late, to do away with the subsidies and introduce fees in the universities.
So then what is
the
this?
government used to allow people, you would actually, they were paying people what was called boom.
Yeah.
You would be paid 4,000 shillings to attend school.
Yeah.
And there was food, you know. People are eating meatballs at the university. Yeah, people, that is it. Very serious food, you know.
Yeah.
So then you live in the halls of residence for free. The halls were for free. There was electricity, there was water. This staff of students, initially the food was free.
Yes.
It was free. Then later on, when they brought in, there was even boom. You know, it is much later that the IMF and World Bank came up with the conditionalities.
Yes.
That is when now they started talking about people now buying food from the canteen, the cafeteria. But it was free.
So are we in this change?
Even if you had friends, your friends would come and eat in the cafeteria for free. And there was adequate money to fund all that. But now World Bank came in, IMF came in with conditionalities and scrapped all those benefits. Now that is where we are headed.
Yeah. And you see, the most unfortunate thing is this, and you know, you have to be stepping on the right streets to be privy to some of this information that you know Martin is bringing to the fore, and including those moments when they constantly said that, you know, there is the hand of the West in the activities, the political activities now, you know, during that is the elections, during the electioneering period. They said, well, it was the West that was backing Ruto's presidency. And, you know, in as much as you'd want to overlook that, reality is that we've known how much they have penetrated the countries of Africa. And therefore, you cannot overlook some of these things that are being said in the streets. Reality is that they remind you, you have to be in good books with the IMF and the World Bank. But at the same time, they tell you how bad IMF and the World Bank, you know, are. So somewhere in between, we just get confused. What to do?
I think from what he heard from the streets, I will not be surprised if Chebukati is appointed judge of the Court of Appeal.
Well,
possibly Bishop Dhumbi comes with a petition against Kome.
And Dhumbi was supposed to be here yesterday.
And then maybe later, Chebukati becomes the Chief Justice. Under Ruto and Gachagua, anything is possible.
Okay.
So, so I think when it comes to what he has talked about, I think
and one of the qualifications for getting a job in their government, you must have either a pending case,
case,
or you have been convicted, or you are, you know.
And
these cases
you don't have integrity issues.
Then
you will not be.
Which they say is politically instigated.
No, but it can't. All these fellas were politically instigated.
I mean, including the latest 1.1.
They are all.
That's where the spotlight is going to shift when it comes to even lending from the West. I think it is a fact that most people in this government, including the deputy president, have scars of and footprints of corruption. So I think also the West will have to speak to itself and ask themselves whether really we want to give money to the same people who have, and that's why we were saying that even if they are sanitized, what is documented exists. Those charges, those investigations, somewhere somebody investigated and has evidence that can pass even to those Bretton Woods institutions. So I think at the end of the day is that we need to examine, when it comes to lending, the characters of the people going to borrow and the people to handle that money should actually be one of the things. And you see, IMF comes with the things like human rights, democracy. It's unlike the Chinese. The Chinese will give you money as long as they can make business or do business for them.
But is that even a good thing for the country?
But you see now, we are talking about the West. We are talking about, and the West will find itself at a crossroad when you're dealing with Raila and Ruto. Because here there will be one person who they have supported in the future as a pro-democrat and with the people surrounding him. And then looking at another person who perceived to be, a student of Moi from the YK 92, the people who almost suppressed democracy and the popular will, and now they have come into power. And look at what they have done. Not that people are not seeing. Cases have actually decided, the DPP has decided to terminate entirely all cases. Including when we talk about people.
We had Wakili here, and he explained in depth the reason why some of these cases have been withdrawn.
No, let's not.
A legal process.
No, let me
so that very matter.
Let me
that will not be overlooked.
The law, and somebody should not tell you that the law is a Bible, that the law is. People go to court to challenge the law.
Well, why hasn't the DPP resigned?
Yeah, people go to court
because that,
the DPP should be telling Kenyans. Why was he taking all these cases to court, knowing that there was no evidence?
There's no evidence.
Two, why is it the people who are being set free, they are all
appointed?
They either funded the campaigns. You can clearly see, look at the names. Immediately you get, you are appointed, then the next minute
your case is
but we speak of lots of facts and figures and evidence. If this evidence is not there.
But why were they being taken? Why did the DPP take them to court in the first place?
Because they say he was
all those cases.
Yes, he was coerced.
But Linda, look, even people who have been accused for evading tax in billions, their cases have been re-excused. I mean, and if you look at the history, they are somehow allied to the government or to the people in power. Okay. So you find this, I know of cases people...
Martin says that they are the actual people who are in power that have some of these blemishes in them, and therefore it's not even, that they are allied, but perhaps they sit therein. So Alusiola.
The issue of corruption, the issue of cases, all revolves around leadership. And anybody who gets into leadership would want to harness everybody who is either a critic or loyal to him to some kind of corner. And that is what the president is doing. Because he needs to have his loyal soldiers close to him. Anyway,
but they say in politics, you do not keep those ones that know you so well close. At least, if at all, they are.
But
the president is a man of his word, because
so he has
actually put his soldiers, the people he worked with during the campaign.
And is that safe a card for him or not?
I think it is to him. He's a man of his own leadership. He feels safe with them, and therefore he cannot go and tap into any other niche. He feels like, I was with Duale, let me work with him. I was with Murkomen, let me work with him in the cabinet. I was with Aisha Jumwa, whether she had a case or not, but I believe that she can be able to deliver.
Historically proven that those ones that have taken that direction have fallen down because this very same...
Let's see how he rows his own boat.
Okay.
Whether the passengers will ruin his rowing of the boat, that is his own issue. Now, on the issue of East or West, either China or the West, I think the president said that he is not going to borrow. Now he is borrowing from East, West, North, and South. Now, when he is borrowing this money, what is he doing with the money? Because he has borrowed money, yes, the money has come into the country, but electricity is still going high. Students are not even able, parents today are actually hustling to get school fees to take their children to Form 1. In fact, it is very saddening that the Minister of Trade, the Cabinet Secretary of Trade, comes, is it yesterday, and gives a directive. The day before yesterday, he gives a directive and says, no school is going to be allowed to give uniforms. Where was he 3 months ago? Couldn't he have sat together with the minister in charge of education, Machogu, and given this directive before? 2 weeks, is it a week or 2 weeks, to the admission of Form 1 students, and then you are telling parents, do not buy school uniform from schools. Where will we buy them? Do we even know the shops? And some of the students have already received admission letters with a directive. Please work with...
Report.
Yes, please work with 15,000 shillings that will cater for this, this, and this. Now, you expect me, a parent in Nairobi who is taking my children, my children or a child to a school in Tana River or to a school in Western or to Central, to now start hustling as to where I'll buy that uniform. We must desist from making last-minute directives. Because even that is what the president is doing today. He believes in last-minute directives. We have to be programmed as a nation. On the tenets of leadership, we must have some kind of plan. That we are looking at having food production by end of September 2023. But what is it that we are doing? What is it that we are planning?
Okay.
Yes.
David Moshi is watching and says, yes, Ruto erred on that matter of killing of Chebukati. He should have kept off this debate. And privatizing university will be heading hell. And also he proceeds to say the gentlemen in studio are shooting straight past my regards to them. And in this one or on this one, then the Right Honorable Raila Odinga is correct. We can only wait to see what direction this takes. We have about 5 minutes to close it. What will be your final submissions on this very matter? Martin Andati, and I know it's a conversation that is still on. We can only wait to see what direction it takes, even as we watch on the reign of Kenya Kwanza.
Ruto has a mandate to fulfill. He is my president. I didn't vote for him, and I have no apology.
You did?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay. How's the only person
he remains your president anyway.
But he is my president.
And like the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, you will not say that you do not recognize.
No, I don't. You know, Raila cannot say that he does not recognize. When he doesn't recognize him, so who is the president?
Yeah.
You see, Miguna who swore Raila in now is not on that side. So Raila is also on his own. He doesn't have somebody to swear him in. So the issue is Ruto has a mandate, irrespective of the margin with which he won the elections. It might have been very small, but you know it's 50% plus 1. So he needs now to focus on delivering the promises he made.
Yeah.
One issue that is very interesting, and you know, I'm a student of political history. President Kibaki, who is late, won the elections of 2002 with a very big margin, 67%. But when he got into power, he did very well on the economic front. And he was not busy answering the opponents You know, Ruto and Gachagua and the rest of the team must know the elections are over. So focusing on talking about our competitors, talking about our opponents, it's not neither here nor there. Kenyans want services. Kenyans want kids to go to school. People are hurting. People are heavily in debt. You saw, if you looked at the papers yesterday, the loans, the non-performing loans have gone up. The highest from 2007. That tells you people don't have money to pay those services, those loans. So there are many issues that people are grappling with. People don't have food in their homes. There is a drought. Northern Kenya, if you look at the clips coming from there, you get depressed. So the president and his team need to focus on delivering on these issues. But answering Raila every other day is not going to help us. Two, after Kibaki won the election in 2002 and did a very good job on the economic front, he tribalized the public service. He appointed so many people from the mountain into strategic government positions. People started profiling it. Ruto is making the same mistake. He picks people from his community, puts them in very strategic positions, then he will pick one from the mountain, he will pick another one from the west, possibly another one from the coast. You saw like when he picked the permanent secretaries, so many of them from the community, his community. People would, and you saw people raise that issue in on social media. He can wish it away, but when the time comes, I can guarantee you it will be a real issue. Yeah, but these Kenyans are not that stupid. And especially now, you know, the power of the mobile phones are almost all over. So people are sharing all this information. You've seen there is credibility on our exams. Just a few months after the exit of the other regime, suddenly you have 900 S coming from Kisii and Nyamira.
Because the minister
two counties. I mean, we are not fools.
Yeah. So you agree that people are look into this?
Yeah, I mean, people are raising questions. Serious questions. You know, those results are not a reflection of what we call a normal distribution curve. You can't tell me that two counties had 900 S, 47 counties, like Tana River had only one A, straight A. So 45 counties shared 246 A's. It's not possible.
But even as a school in Kisii had around 58 students, all of them were admitted to university. While a school like Lenana had at least a D+, you know? So you expect a whole school, Nyakemincha, taking 58 students, all of them to university.
Yeah, there are questions, serious questions about those results.
Yes.
Somebody somewhere cheated. In the case of Cardinal Otunga, the principal who is there came from Western and is a non-performer. But there are also questions even at the results, you know. So there is every likelihood that the exam leaked in that particular region, and they shared the questions and the answers, and they confined it among themselves.
Yes, we cut to chase, yes.
Yeah. Just a minute on the same. Don't even just look at the KCP, the KCSE. Also look at the KCPE, because there are schools and teachers who actually came out, guns blazing, saying, these are not the results of our school. So this cheating, and remember just a week ago, we were deemed a cheating nation. So this cheating did not just happen at the KCSE level, it also happened at the KCPE.
Okay. As we sum it up.
So those are some of the issues Kenyans will want the president to address so that we are able to move forward. As I finalize, I've seen my friend Matsanga, who was your boss one time, sending a message. He's been talking about what we call the redemption strategy. You know, we need to, if we want to bring the country together, we must have a redemption strategy. We would have gone that route when we set up the Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Committee.
Yeah.
But you know that also didn't happen.
Yeah.
And you've seen the president said, and you know those are very serious statements he's making.
Yeah.
That if somebody encroaches on your land, or if he comes and occupies it, you don't need to push him out. You can sit down and negotiate.
Yeah.
You know, basically, you are encouraging, yes, you are encouraging people now to come and
grab land, yes?
grab people's land. Then they will tell you, but the boss said that we can negotiate.
Yes.
So what I'll do, I'll occupy, I've already built, I will look for some money, we see how we can pay you. So he is making very serious policy statements. And you know, a good manager, you must delegate. You know, however strong, William Ruto has a lot of energy.
Yeah.
This is my president, the way I've said. But he cannot be all over government.
Yeah.
He will burn out.
Right.
However much energy he has got, let him learn to
delegate and allow for
Let
others
him also trust some of the people.
I don't know whether it is the Moi style. They said Moi was in charge.
Yeah, but even Moi was in charge, but he also used to delegate.
Yes.
Yeah, so he needs to learn to delegate so that if you give people work, trust them to deliver.
Well,
if you don't have faith in their abilities, then don't give them those responsibilities.
All right.
So that they are able to get things done. Otherwise, it's going to be a mess.
Thank you.
Yeah.
30 seconds.
Just to finish, I think. I think one of the things I will say is that Ruto has the legality to govern this country. He was legally, constitutionally elected as president, but he lacks the legitimacy. And that legitimacy is what Raila is capitalizing on.
Okay.
And I can tell you as a matter of fact, whether they go to the moon and back, Ruto has no legitimacy. And that is why Raila, even when he was being sworn in as the people's president, is because of the vacuum for that legitimacy, which comes from the people. So as much as the constitution and the legal framework puts him in that particular office as my president and as our president, the question of legitimacy is what is now supposed to deal with.
Well, strictly 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think the president has a mandate. Let him avoid politics. Let him look down on his manifesto. Let him look at what is bedeviling Kenyans. Let him lower the food prices. Let him ensure that students are in school. Let him ensure that there is peace as he's doing, and Kenya is going to go forward. But also, let the opposition do their part. Let them ensure that the evils of the government are being put in the spotlight every day. And for sure, even during the Kibaki's moment, as has been said by my colleagues, he never used to speak, but his actions spoke more than his word.
Wow.
And you remember in 2000, when Kibaki took over, Kenyans were the most optimistic people in the whole world.
Yeah.
We must bring our optimism back by the president doing what he promised the people of Kenya.
I hope when he keeps silent on the Right Honorable Raila Odinga again, you won't come here and say, why is he silent when these people are making noise? Last speaker, stand